You're listening to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast, a show where a philosopher and a rocket scientist try to make sense of the Cleveland Browns. The Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science podcast is a part of the Fanatical Elves Podcast Network, a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Elliot Kennel and Joel Cade.
Hi, and welcome to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science. He is the left guard, Dr. Joel Cade, philosophy professor at the left guard. I am the Village Elliot at TH Village Elliot. Together, we hope to offer unique perspectives on the hardest game in the universe, NFL football, and the strangest team to ever attempt to play at the Cleveland Browns. We're not necessarily the best analysts in the land, though we are very close. Nor do we claim to follow the best team in football, certainly not, but we are absolutely unique. Joel really is a PhD in football, PhD in philosophy, and I really am a former Air Force specialist in space power and propulsion at beautiful Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, the largest Air Force base in the world and home of the deadliest fighting force in the world. And today we're going to talk about several subjects, three of which are going to be the NFL lawsuit based on discrimination of various types, but especially sexual discrimination in the workplace. We're also going to talk about whether or not the Browns should have cheerleaders in that context. And we're going to conclude with social advocacy in NFL, and particularly why free agents should sign with the Cleveland Browns, in our opinion. Now, we're not paid by the Cleveland Browns. We can say whatever we want, and if we want to say that we think that the Browns are terrible and they're going to go winless, we're totally within our rights to say that. So we are not paid shills for the Browns, but we really do believe that free agents should give the Cleveland Browns special consideration because of the positions that the Browns have taken on freedom of expression and their involvement in social issues. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes.
Although, Elliot, I will say that
things that you wanted to say.
Well, first I want to say I'm not above getting paid by the Browns. So if they want to pay me,
they want to bribe us.
They want to pay me.
Bribes.
I mean, I'm more than happy to get paid. But go ahead, I interrupted you.
No, I'm ready to turn it over to you. We were talking before the show started about the NFL lawsuit and the potential or alleged discrimination in the workplace.
Right. So this is actually not a lawsuit per se, but the California and New York Attorney Generals have decided to do a joint investigation of the NFL headquarters and the NFL studios in Los Angeles over allegations brought by 30 women to Human Resources. And then these women allege and claim that after going to Human Resources, they were retaliated against, that there's discrimination in the workplace in terms of pay and sexual discrimination in the workplace. Basically, they're sexually harassed in the workplace. And that when they complained about it, they got retaliated against. So New York Attorney General and California's Attorney General decided to open a joint investigation against the NFL, which is one of but many investigations going on in the NFL and NFL-related teams and activities regarding these exact kind of behaviors.
That's right. And earlier we had mentioned on a different show that the Washington team had been investigated for a period of years, but the only thing that was really found that was really wrong was an email sent by John Gruden, who really wasn't even on the team. And otherwise, they were, as far as we know, squeaky clean. Isn't that right?
Well, I mean, if you believe that, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona I got for sale.
I'll take it.
I'm more than willing to sell off to anybody interested.
Okay.
I mean, are you sure the NFL just gave over somebody as the scapegoat? This is the whole saga also with the Commanders where Goodell was supposed to go to Congress after a couple times of skipping out. I believe he skipped out a couple times, then actually showed up. I know Dan Snyder had skipped out of his subpoenaed appearance before Congress. I'm not sure if he has actually testified before Congress or not. I'll have to find that out, but I know he had skipped out a couple times on that. So the NFL is clearly avoiding this situation, and Congress is trying to get into the situation when it comes to the Commanders.
Well, Dan Snyder's a busy man.
That's also a situation where
Maybe
The
he's
Maryland Attorney General and the Washington, D.C. Attorney General have a joint investigation investigating Dan Snyder's financial dealings with the NFL in terms of holding money back from people who paid personal seat licenses and people who put money in for deposits on season tickets. So they've got some other things going on there, too.
By the way, I have a bone to pick with the Cleveland media, actually the national media, concerning the Cleveland Browns. Who owns the Cleveland Browns? This is a trivia question. Who is the owner of the Cleveland Browns?
So now I would have to guess, because I think it's the Haslam Sports Group,
Yes.
that they would own the Columbus Crew
Principal owners,
and a quarter of the Milwaukee Bucks.
And who is the CEO of Haslam Sports Group? Pray tell.
I would want to say Jimmy Haslam because he's been the most out front.
But you would be wrong, because for the past few years, it's been D. Haslam, and all the official correspondences from the team are now signed D. and Jimmy Haslam. But the media tends to continue to refer to Jimmy Haslam III as the owner of the Cleveland Browns, and it's not true. And it's not just a perfunctory title. D. Haslam really does have final say-so over the important decisions that run the Cleveland Browns. I believe it is she that reorganized the front office and coaching staff from top to bottom. And what she really did, I think that's important, is to clarify the roles that the team was going to play. Like, you'll recall that in 2018, there was the thought that, well, okay, we're really mad at Hugh Jackson for making bogus play calls, but we'll let you keep your job, but we're going to have the offensive coordinator be in charge of the offensive play calling. So the offensive play caller is going to have more authority than the head coach on certain parts of the job. It's all mixed up, where you've got people at lower levels in charge of people at higher levels, and that's the type of thing that D. Haslam wanted to straighten out. To know, let's figure out who's working for who, and we're not going to have people at lower levels bossing around people at higher levels.
Well, I think one of the most
is going to be the general manager. The coaches are going to coach. The players are going to play, and we're not going to get those roles mixed up. Let's figure out who's going to do what, who's going to make the call on draft day. We're not going to have the owner drafting players anymore. We're going to have, the appropriate person make the call on draft day, rather than have a ethnic fire drill to select who's going to make the call.
Okay, an ethnic fire drill. That's pretty good. No, I think one of the best thing.
Am I in trouble?
I don't think you're in trouble. I think one of the best thing D. Haslam has done is actually listen to Paul DePodesta. I mean, that guy's been making $1 million plus a year. I don't know for how many years, and Jimmy Haslam just didn't care what he had to say. He'd rather hear what the homeless guy had to say, as opposed to the guy he's paid $1 million to organize the organization. I think that's what he does. Institutional systems is what he's about.
The homeless guy was the person that they listened to rather than the smartest guy in the organization. And D said, we're not going to do that anymore. Let's get the smartest guy in the organization, and he's going to choose the general manager and then the head coach, not homeless guy.
Well, I think we're being a little facetious with the homeless guy. The homeless guy really didn't pick the pick, but it was more like
we might
confirmed.
As well have, because
he just pretty much confirmed what Jimmy Haslam already wanted to do, which was take Johnny Manziel. And the homeless guy just kind of gave him the confirmation, yeah, go for it. It'll be great.
Well, yeah, that process did not work. We needed to have a more rigorous process, but it caught everybody by surprise. The head coach didn't know that it was going to be Manziel. Nobody knew that it was going to be Manziel. It was not a good decision. There were other quarterbacks that were apparently ranked higher within the organization, and that the people that were primed to make that call I think that they wanted to have Derek Carr, or they wanted Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, that they were rated 1-2. And Manziel was highly rated, but not number one. I think he was probably a second round draft pick in their view. And they probably didn't rate highly enough the importance of off the field issues, which were known about to some extent at the time.
Well, that was also the same draft where they didn't do a single bit of investigation on Justin Gilbert and drafted him anyway.
Oops.
I mean, that's a known entity out there that they did zero workup on the guy because they thought, oh, he'll never get to us. And then when he did get to them, they're like, oh my gosh, we need to just take this guy, and they just took the guy sight unseen.
That was a problem. And then also we had general managers telling the offensive coordinator who to start, who to put in and out of the lineup, and using their cell phones to tell people who to, how to do their job instead of letting them do the job the way they're supposed to, but according to the NFL rule book. And
it does seem that things have been cleaned up in terms of some of the buffoonery that are been going on around, the Browns since it seems since Dee Haslam kind of took the reins. And I don't know if that was prompted by the FBI raid of Pilot Flying J.
Well, I don't think we should go there since
I'm just saying those are side by side. They're parallel.
Let's just say that I believe Jimmy Haslam woke up and realized that his way wasn't working. And Dee Haslam was the CEO of Revere Media that won 8 Oscar nominations. She is a CEO in her own right and a brilliant organizer and far more qualified to organize a corporation. Now, Jimmy Haslam was great at making money, and he did a very good job with Pilot Oil, and very famous for that, rightly so. But Dee was a brilliant organizer. She's not as extroverted as Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam is very good at working the media, but Dee Haslam is the organizer, and she deserves credit for that.
I will say, let me jump on this on Jimmy though. Berkshire Hathaway purchased Pilot Flying J. That's true. If the Oracle of Omaha is going to get involved, and we're talking about Warren Buffett, for those of you who don't recognize Oracle of Omaha or Berkshire Hathaway, when Warren Buffett goes in and buys an organization, he's not buying that organization because he wants to run that organization. They're buying that organization because they are well run. They can continue to make money, and they see this as a place to basically stash their money, keep the people who are still running the organization, continue to have them running the organization, and continue to make the money. They're just essentially owning the company and stashing their money in it. Mm-hmm. That's basically what Berkshire Hathaway does. So Jimmy Haslam has been successful on the Pilot Flying J side of situations.
Yes, yeah. Both have been very successful at doing what they do. I'd like to talk a little bit about something that they've done is diversify the front office. The Browns have been way out in front, as usual, and including women in the front office and the coaching staff. They're among the leaders in incorporating any category that you want to mention in terms of involving African Americans in the front office, or females in the front office, or persons of color or of different religion. The Browns have diversified their front office like no other organization has. The Cleveland Browns, I think, bar none, have been number one in the NFL at diversifying their front office.
And in fact, in this last draft, I think that pick that the Browns used on Siaki Ika was actually a compensatory pick that the Browns got because they had a minority hired out of their front office into another team's front office, which I believe was the Kwesi Adolphu Mensah pick.
Yes, Kwesi. I can't pronounce his name. I apologize for that. Kwesi.
I'm pretty bad at it.
Kwesi Adolphu Mensah, and I forgot what nationality his parents are. I think possibly they were from Nigeria, but I'm not sure about that. But yeah, he got his professional upbringing in the Cleveland Browns organization. He grew up to be a general manager of Minnesota. We wish him well, except when they played the Cleveland Browns. and he left us a legacy of 2 third-round draft picks when he left. So that's all cool.
Yeah, there you go.
And yeah, do you want to talk about cheerleaders? You promised me a
So,
rant on
oh
cheerleaders.
yeah, I can. You're going to just cut me off here in a few minutes. I tell you what, I think the Browns have been very astute and wise to stay out of the cheerleading game in the NFL. I mean, obviously the weather plays a role in it, but the cheerleaders are the like exploited class of the NFL. I do philosophy, and I always think of when I see the NFL cheerleaders, I always think of Marx and Engels, the Communist Manifesto. At the very end, it says, "Workers of the world unite." Cheerleaders of the NFL unite. You're getting the garbage into the deal. Oftentimes, they get paid $50 a game. That's what the Bengals were going at one point. Their cheerleaders were paid $50 a game. And if you ever actually watch the cheerleaders, which I don't, but I can imagine they're down there jumping around like the entire game. That's a
Yeah.
lot of work. Plus the practice that goes into it. Plus they're out there and they have signed over their image and likeness to like pictures, photographs, calendars, anything you can think of. You got these cheerleaders out there and they're not getting paid a whole lot for it. They're being told, well, this is a great opportunity for your career. This is a great opportunity for you to have exposure. And when you start talking about it's a great opportunity for you, it's really not. It's a great opportunity for someone else to use you to further their own business. And unfortunately, the cheerleaders have been in the middle of that with the NFL. Plus, you've got the issues that was alleged with the Commanders. You can go ahead and look that up. I'm not going to talk about that stuff. But there's nothing good that comes from having cheerleaders for an NFL team. I don't see anything good of it. I'm glad the Browns are not in it, and all the cheerleaders of the NFL unite, fight against the power, get the benefits you deserve, get the pay you deserve. You're bringing in a lot of money for these NFL organizations. You deserve your fair share of the situation, and I think you should get a lawyer, unionize up, and go get your fair share.
Mhm. Well, I'm just scanning the internet, and it looks like they are doing that.
Good for
I'm,
them.
I'm seeing that the salaries of pro football cheerleaders in the U.S. range from 13,000 to 346,000, with a
Well, good.
median of 63,000.
So that's
Um,
different from say 5 years ago when I looked into
yes,
this, and they're getting paid $50 a game with no benefits or support or anything.
yes. To quote Bob Dylan, the times they are a changing. Some of the older, just a few years ago, the data says that the average NFL cheerleader salary is $150 per game day. So holy cow,
Right.
that's grossly different. So I believe that it is changing quite a bit. Yeah, this is quite an amazing difference.
I just think
Um,
it's bad, bad business to be in.
it's yeah, it has been horrible, definitely. Whether it's changing now, I'm not sure, but it seems like things are on the upswing. They should be. I think it is an issue um, about.
All right, Elliot, we're up on a commercial break here, so
Okay, let's go for it.
we're gonna take a commercial break, everybody, and we'll be back on the other side.
Break on through to the other side.
And we're back, guys. Thanks for sticking around for us. I know Elliot had another awesome topic he wanted to bring up. He wanted to discuss giving back to the community and NFL free agents.
Yeah, I'm looking for that on my computer.
Well, in the meantime, I always fret when I go to a game and I see cheerleaders standing outside and all this kind of stuff. I remember when I had lived in Atlanta, I was went to a blood drive where the Falcons cheerleaders were there, and they were giving away free tickets to games. Of course, this was the ticket to the fourth NFL preseason game, so they're literally giving these things away. And this woman was talking to everybody that was there, And one of the things that she told us was that, she doesn't even get paid to go to the blood drive. She's required to be at the blood drive, but wasn't even getting paid to be at the blood drive. And I thought, this is ridiculous. They got her out here in this cheerleader outfit. She's not getting paid to do it. It's because she's getting the opportunity to be a cheerleader, and she could have it on her resume for the rest of her life. It's just sad. So, Elliot, the schedule comes out tomorrow.
See, did it work?
Give me a second here. We'll get you set up here. There you go. You're going to have to start your slideshow. There we go. So for those of you who can't see, Elliot has a slideshow up here, and he's going to tell us what he's breaking down for us and bring it on home. There you go, Elliot. It's all you, man.
If you're on the audio-only podcast, we'll have to tell you that I'm calling out NFL free agents. We normally don't even worry about social causes enough, in my opinion. We wait until there's a crisis, and then suddenly say, oh, yes, the NFL cares about social causes so much. And so I'm calling you out, free agents, that if social justice and ethnic diversity really matter, Northeast Ohio and the Cleveland Browns specifically have been way, way, way out in front since the birth of professional football. Other ownership groups have promoted conflict with players, threatened to bench or fire players for not towing the company line. That is a fact. And so we respectfully consider or suggest that you consider these factors when you choose which team you're going to sign with when you're a free agent. And let's see. Let me go for the next one. Now I'm showing a photograph of the Cleveland Summit for Muhammad Ali in 1967 when people were debating whether they should support Muhammad Ali's decision to be a pacifist during the Vietnam War. There's a photo of Jim Brown, who was the head of the so-called summit, and it was his Black Economic Union in Euclid Avenue that hosted the meeting, which is a center of activity at that time. And there's also Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell of the Boston Celtics, Willie Davis of the Green Bay Packers, Carl Stokes, who would become the first black mayor of a major city, namely Cleveland, John Wooten of the Cleveland Browns, and many other famous athletes came to Cleveland to support Muhammad Ali. And that's because Cleveland was the place where this kind of debate was allowed to happen. You couldn't do this in just any city. That's a long time ago. But let's talk about the 2020s, about this decade. We had, in a time of crisis, a lot of NFL owners were very, very angry about things like the Kaepernick flag protest. And actually, it was the backlash, really, that got everybody into trouble, where the owners got so mad when they threatened the players that they're actually, potentially infringing their constitutional rights of free speech. And they were really getting in trouble. And it looked like the NFL was landing on the wrong side of the issue, that we support police brutality and we support discrimination. And so the commissioner said, well, whoa, wait a minute. How did we get on this? This is not where we want to be. And really created a mess. And in contrast, the Browns ownership, you may criticize them for a lot of things, but from the get-go, they firmly supported listening to the players, dialoguing with the players, and they publicly backed their concerns, unlike other ownership groups. And the Browns have responded in a positive way, saying, let's forget about what happened and, some of the misfires that occurred where there were protests that, in my opinion, were misdirected, where they made a lot of people mad. But what should you be doing? Well, you should be having a program like the Browns Be the Solution, which allows players, corporations, and ordinary fans to work together to cause social change and to build communities and economic progress. Okay, now here I'm showing a slide which contains a statement from Dee and Jimmy Haslam that early on supported the players and also disagreed with the president of the United States and said that, look, there was a statement from President Trump saying that we need to bench all the players who opposed the protest or that supported the protest. I'm sorry. And the Haslams, Dee and Jimmy, said that we view our organization as great unifiers of people, and they supported having conversations and creating a plan to work together in the neighborhoods. We support the Cleveland Police Department. We're proud of the efforts to quietly improve the lives of others. And so they were really, I think, a positive voice of reason in this time of crisis. And this is in great contrast to other owners. I've got a quote from an owner who will remain anonymous for the time being. But this owner said that under no circumstances will our team, I don't care what happens, under no circumstances will we as an organization, coaches, players, not support, stand, recognize, and honor the flag, period. Okay, so that got into trouble. And later, that owner did indeed take a knee, link arms with the players, and say, yeah, I was sorry about that. I kind of misspoke there. Sorry. So, Be the Solution is on the Cleveland Browns website. You can find it at www.clevelandbrowns.com/community/be-the-solution / and there are all kinds of organizations that are all tied together. You can find one that you can support. Players participate, and I'm showing a picture of Anthony Walker Jr., who is a judge, kind of like a Shark Tank affair, where they had small businesses compete in order to get a investment in their business, and the Cleveland Browns participated in that and supported that along with other local investors to promote minority-owned businesses. So there's all kinds of different things, voter registration, community support, other efforts to improve relations with the police and also promote police reform, economic advancement, and small businesses, all kinds of cool stuff. So that's what the Cleveland Browns are about. There are other teams in the NFL that are doing similar things, but the Cleveland Browns have always been way out in front in getting involved in the community. It dates back to when the Cleveland Browns were first formed. You will recall that the Cleveland Browns were the first team in pro football to hire African American players in 1946, and it hasn't stopped since then. That's our legacy. And am I still sharing or not?
I have. You are no longer sharing, Elliot.
Okay, cool. Let me see if I can close this.
So I will agree with you, and the Browns have always been in the forefront of social justice issues. I think some of this took a back seat under the Art Modell time, where he didn't like having people out there in the middle of some of these issues, but particularly his well-known controversies with Jim Brown. But I think the Browns have really, including Dee and Jimmy Haslam, for as much as they get about the homeless guy and the disorganization and the dysfunction, they've always seemed to gotten the business side of the situation correct. And I think they understand players aren't just things that throw out there, but they're actual people and take care of people. And the Browns have been an organization that in the 80s was one of the first to really have, a drug rehabilitation kind of program for the players that actually spawned into the NFL's drug policy, if you will. So they've always been in the forefront on the business side as much as the football side. So if we have to endure losing, at least we can endure losing as a model organization that's just happened to be losing on the football field, as opposed to being some other organizations out there.
Yeah, well, it should translate. I'm hopeful that some of the free agents will take that into consideration, that this is a community that will support them,
Mm-hmm.
and that they will find the opportunity to bring about social change. If that's what they're about, they will find a home in Cleveland that they will appreciate. That's my belief. They'll find other communities where they will find very what shall I say, very strict ownership that may not be quite so tolerant of different ways of thinking, that my way or the highway. If that's what you want, okay. But I just wanted to inform, and again, I'm not being paid by the Cleveland Browns.
Although I'm not against it.
Yeah. But I think it's very important to just point out what's different about the situation in Cleveland compared to the situation in some other cities. They're not the same.
Right. And with that, Elliot, we're running up against it. So any last final thoughts here?
Go Browns.
And go Browns.
Thank you for listening to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast. Please like, subscribe, and tell all your friends to give a listen. You can follow Joel on Twitter at The Left Guard and Elliot at The Village Elliot.